I added Sonic to Super Mario Bros. I added new sprites to the game, gave Mario the ability to spin dash, and designed an entire level around this new power-up. Here's how I did it. For a while now, I've been building up my programming skills by creating a game I already knew, Super Mario Bros. But that only taught me half of what it takes to make my own games. Game developers don't just build games, they also have to design games to be fun. I have no idea how to do that. I didn't run into design issues when making Super Mario Bros. Because someone already thought through how to make that game fun 40 years ago. I developed a lot of my programming skills by recreating that game, but now I need to build up my design skills. To do that, I've given myself 7 days to merge the designs of 2 completely different platformers into one level to hopefully, finally make something fun. On day 1, I focused on creating the art for the game. Now, look, before I show you this, just know I'm not good at pixel art or art in general. I know that, you're about to know that, we're on the same page. I needed to create a Sonic suit for Mario that fits the art style of the original game. I tried to create something with only 3 colors because that's what the original NES can handle. That did not turn out well. I ditched the idea of making a whole new sprite, and instead I used the shader that changes Mario's sprite colors to create a blue, white, and red suit for his Sonic form. However, I still needed to create a sprite for when he's actually spin dashing. I thought it'd be cool to make Mario look like he was tucked up in a ball like he does in Super Mario Odyssey, but I couldn't get that to look right with such a small image. So yeah, he ended up being a little ball with a white glimmer on him. It's not the best pixel art, I know, but I knew the art wasn't going to be great. I came into this project with a single goal, to make something fun. I can spend more time on art in a different project. If I tried to build up every game dev skill in one project, I'd either quit or spend months on this one level. On top of changing Mario's suit, I needed to create a spin animation. I iterated through a few versions before ultimately landing on this animation that doesn't look half bad. I limited myself to 1 day of making art because I only had a week to make this fun to play, so this is what we're rolling with. Speaking of rolling, I've got a code. I've got to code the roll into the game. Here was my initial idea. When the player crouches in Sonic form, they'll turn into a ball. Then when they press the B button, it'll charge the spin dash into 3 different levels, with each level letting the player go faster. I tested this system out and it was really boring. Spin dashing at level 1 and 2 was useless. I tried creating some sections that relied on lower levels of spin dash, but I could never get over this feeling that I was trying to make a fun level chunk with an ability that wasn't fun. The only fun I ever had was going for that charge level 3. So I scrapped that idea and went all in on having a single, fast spin dash charge level. This was chaotic, but if I could create a level that plays into that chaos, I think I can make something fun. I chose to have the spin dash change between these 3 colors, just like the star power form, to communicate to the player that they're invincible in this mode. Also wanted the spin dash to break through blocks, which was pretty easy. I slurped up the code that lets Koopa's shells break blocks and spat it into the spin dash. This was the first time in the project that I had fun. I couldn't tell if the game itself was fun, or if I was just glad my crappy code finally worked, but I'm gonna take it as a win regardless. Now that Mario can dash through breakable blocks, I needed to do something when he spins into a solid block, because right now he just sits there until the spin dash is over. Boring! I also had another problem. The player is fast and invincible during the spin dash. I needed to counter that with some kind of risk. To solve both of those issues, I added a bonk system to the game. When the player runs into a solid block, they'll get knocked back and temporarily lose the ability to move. I totally stole this idea from Mario Odyssey, by the way. About 10 other bugs later, and now the spin dash finally works. At the end of day 4, I was ahead of schedule and feeling pretty pumped about it. I was so pumped that I went ahead and made a rough draft of the level before the end of the day. I don't know if this is what real game designers do, but I built the level in chunks. A chunk is just what I call a section of the level that has a story. Like this section where the block spells Sonic. I built a bunch of these fun looking chunks and squished them together to make a full level. Creating a prototype this early was supposed to help me focus on the level design over the last few days and spend less time coding. But none of that matters if my game doesn't work. Here's how my first playthrough went. I'm gonna have to spend a lot more time bug fixing than I can afford. I plan to spend days 5 and 6 making more level chunks, but those days turned into a cycle of bug fixing, breaking something, then bug fixing, then breaking something, then bug. And before I knew it, I'd fixed the game's code, but I only had 1 day left to fix the level design. I spent my last day refining level chunks and working on even more bugs until this is what I came up with. I wanted the start to look like the first level from Sonic the Hedgehog. The most important parts of that level are these 3 rings, this platform the player can jump on, and this bridge. I was pretty limited with the blocks from Super Mario Bros, but I think I got it pretty close. I could have made it look a lot more like Green Hill Zone with background scenery, but I ran out of time before I could do that. Then the player meets this brick wall that they have to slide under. This is hopefully where they learn to use the spin dash. This one section teaches the player multiple things about the ability. They can speed under blocks, take out enemies, dash over 2 block gaps, and they'll bonk if they hit something solid. I specifically bonked the player to this cliff's edge to scare them. This teaches the player that they need to be careful with the spin dash without making them restart the level. Overall, I think think it's a pretty good start. Then the player moves on to the chunk I call the pit. This section was originally at the end of the level, but in developing the level, I realized that's stupid. Immediately after I get this ability, the first thing my gamer monkey brain wants to do is spin dash into a row of enemies. Instead of cheaping the player out of a good time, I decided to give them what they want immediately and spend the rest of the level using the abilities in ways they aren't expecting. This next section has no enemies and doesn't challenge the player. I just need to reiterate to the player that they can dash over 2 block wide gaps. In the rough draft, I didn't have this row of coins in the top, but for the final level, I added these coins to make it super clear to the player that they can spin dash across these blocks. After running through that row of coins, the player zooms past this question mark, only to realize this gap is far too large for them to spin dash. They break the first block, break the second block, and then it turns out this block is a coin block that can't be destroyed. This section is super fun in my opinion because it takes the player from getting a bunch of coins to, oh dear, I'm about to die, to, oh no, I'm safe. The story of how this section came together is also really cool. In my rough draft playthrough, I didn't expect to spin dash this far, and I thought I was going to break the block and fall in a pit. It was really cool to see a mistake turn into a core part of my level. This just proves that the best things in your games can come from the accidents you run into while playing it. Unfortunately, I follow up one of the best level chunks with objectively the worst. I spent the least amount of time on this chunk and it really shows. It's really 2 sections divided by this pipe. The left half is boring and needs a lot more iteration. A real Mario level wouldn't randomly have 2 enemies on the bottom floor with a weird group of blocks on the top. With so little going on, this section, more than others, is desperately missing the background scenery that I completely forgot about. I didn't think to make a to-do list, so there were a couple things that I meant to add but forgot about. If you haven't noticed, I also forgot to add Mario's jump sound effect, so now we both can't unhear it. Or I guess we couldn't hear it in the first place. After this pipe is a cooler section called the challenge. You see, the player can completely skip this section if they wanted to, or they can accept the challenge. If the player can time a spin dash correctly, they'll pop open this question block. Slight mistiming, and they're headed for the abyss. Challenge failed, you suck. Look, opening the question block is nothing special. In fact, it breaks the game right now because I forgot to put a power up in it. But the level was feeling a bit too linear, and I needed something to break away from the golden path. Because this is the first Super Mario Bros, there's not like a secret coin or something that I can give the player, but if this was a later game in the series, or if I had more time, I definitely had one of those big coins up there. The next section is very important to the level. The player can't spin dash or else they'll fall into the pit. It may seem counterintuitive to stop the player from spin dashing, but I wanted to build anticipation. When the player can't use the ability they're hopefully having fun with, they get antsy to use it again. This anticipation is matched by the increase of each platform's height. Then when they've reached the top, the player can once again spin dash down the slope, taking out a bunch of Goombas along the way. There's a few optional blocks they can destroy at the bottom. Then finally, if they still have the Sonic suit, they can spin dash into the flagpole. That definitely works Mario, where are you going? And that's what I was able to come up with in a week. Did I make something fun? I would say yes, but with a big catch. This is a fun gimmick, but a weak power-up. You see, the spin dash was fun for this specific level, but it breaks a fundamental rule of platformers. Platformers should have abilities that add to the platforming in a game. In the idea phase of the project, I thought a spin dash the player couldn't jump out of would add to the player's choice. Either commit to the risk of spin dashing, or platform as usual. But by the end of the project, it felt like I was just removing their ability to platform in a platformer. If I wanted to scale this ability into a full game, I would let the player move while spin dashing. Kind of like how Sonic does in Super Smash Bros. That was an idea that only came to me after the week was up. On top of having an issue with player choices, the game was a little bit buggy, and had another fundamental issue. This specific level was fun to play with the spin dash, but it doesn't work in other levels of the game. It sounds stupid, but it never crossed my mind to create an ability that works in the original game's levels. They aren't designed with such an extreme ability in mind, so spin dashing is just not fun in levels like 1-1. If you want to see how I built up the Mario Bros side of the project, check out this playlist of shorts. Just know that some of those videos aren't how the final project works anymore because I switched engines recently. If you want to do this, use Godot, by the way. I ran into a whole lot less issues with it than I did Unity. Anyways, I might add more to this game if there's an idea in the comments that really interests me, so leave your ideas below. Thanks for watching.